Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason Grady. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetlands Commission of Monroe. It is April the 24th. It is currently, what time is it? 7:09. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will introduce the members of the commission currently present. Starting on the right is Commissioner Clark Gingras. Next to him is Commissioner Ross Mastroraco. To my immediate right is Commissioner Jim Stewart, who is our treasurer. He's a professional engineer and a licensed land surveyor. To my left is Donna Trzynski, who is the office manager. Before I forget, let me write it and cross out the rest. To her left is Scott Schatzline, who is a licensed professional engineer, town engineer, and our inland wetland agent. And also with us is Sarah Stroud, who is our recording secretary. Before we start, I am supposed to read our mission statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetlands Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearing is that an applicant make a representation or presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be opened up for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair of the commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond. It is not necessary for the applicant to respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new materials entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep any and all comments pro and con specific to inland wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comment allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Is there any changes to your agenda tonight?
The only item that I have is 34 Enterprise Drive under Section 8, bond release, reductions and reports in the form. So this will be in the form of just an update.
Thank you. All right. So the next order of business is general public participation. This is a period of time reserved for public participation that has nothing to do with anything on the agenda tonight. Anybody here like to make a comment of a general nature? Seeing none, I'll move on. There is no subdivision report. There's no regulated activity. So we'll move right on to enforcement. Notice of violation discussion, IWV 2012-15, 3 Lowest Circle, filling of wetlands and unapproved structures.
Okay, so just as a segue into this, the commission, I brought this before the commission at the last meeting just to kind of bring them up to date on it. It's been a long time since they were involved in this. And so they requested that we reissue the notice of violation. That's why you're here. And this is it's an informal process, so it's not a hearing. It's just you communicating with the commission. There'll be some questions. There'll be a chance for both to kind of indicate a few things. And the purpose of the meeting tonight is just so that the commission can make a determination as to what process, if any, should be followed in an effort to resolve the issue. It's not to resolve it tonight. It's just to get information to decide what avenue to utilize to resolve it.
Yes.
So with that, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll...
My name is Antonio Gloria. I just bought the house, and I need to...
Hold on, Antonio, can we get the spelling of your name? I'm sorry.
Yes, Antonio Gloria, like a Gloria Stefan. I know.
I like it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so basically, I know I have to fix up on some previous owner did, and now we have to hire a soil scientist to see how much he put the dirt on the area, and I like to ask if I can start remove those stone he left right on the top, if I need a permit for that. And also he made a garage with the wood. It's just wood in a garage. If I can start removing that without the permit as well.
You know what, why don't, I kind of neglected it. Usually I kind of run through it for your sake as well. Let me just run through what the violation is.
Yes.
And that way, I think you'll get a better understanding and the commission will get refreshed again on it. But, so, this is the original, I believe this was all sent to you already, the report and the sketch? Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about the noise. So this is the report, and it lists all the different things: unpermitted placement of the stone boulders, there's filling, there's excavation, there's invasives, there's a piped water course, there's structures that are there, a number of, quite a few things that don't comply with the regulations. So along with that, we make a sketch of the property. The orange line here is the property line. Can you switch that to the... So this orange line is the property line. You can see this is an aerial image. This shaded blue area is what we had on record for the limits of the wetlands. So wetlands are from this line back to the, I believe it's to the east, toward your back lot line. It also had a water course that came down here and crossed the yard here. So what happened was the property owners before you, they piped this water course without a permit, and it widened the backyard over to this area. They put in a gravel driveway that kind of came back into here. They put in a number of structures down here, sheds and chicken coops and things like that. They put a shed in out here, which I should point out, this line right here is the limit of the regulated area by the commission. They regulate everything within 100 feet of a wetland. Meaning that you just need to get permits. Some activities are allowable, and then other activities may not be, but you would need some form of a permit, be it administrative or commission approval, to do things such as putting this shed in. That was never done. This purple,
You still think you can get a permit to keep the shed where it is?
yeah, we're gonna get to that. Yeah,
Okay.
you can, I think so, yes. But this pink area on both sides, this whole area, which is basically the whole back half of your property, all of that is disturbance within the regulated area that did not have a permit. Now, some of them, and these structures here, they're not all that difficult to resolve. You either get a permit for them or you take them away. But there are major issues here in that there were wetlands that were, they were piped, and there are other places where under drains were put in to dry up the land. And there was a pond here that was dug out more than it was in the first place. And there's invasives invading into the pond. As I said, there's wetland areas here that have been filled, regraded, cleared.
They fill in the front.
Was that?
They fill in the front of the pond.
Yeah, there's stuff there's like
Yeah,
an
right there.
area here.
Yeah, right there.
that's-
Not in the top. They didn't touch in the top. More
No,
was in the
this
bottom.
whole pink area, purplish pink area has been altered. And when I was out there years ago, when this was initially a violation, this whole area that you're pointing to up here was fully regraded and had wood chips on it, and they installed a under drain up in this area, and over in this area here, they put drains in under the ground that collect the water and bring them to this pond and bring it to this pipe over here. So there are pipes that you can't see that are under the ground that
Okay.
are actually drying up that land.
Okay.
Because before it used to be very wet. So that's where we are. So we issued a violation. The property owner came before the commission and said, basically, it was an evening like tonight, the same process. And he said that he would submit he would provide a submission to the commission with plans and a plan of action to address and remediate the problem. He never did that. He never came in. We went back and forth, and eventually the commission issued a citation. The citation was filed, he actually went to the citation hearing, if I'm remembering correctly, said during that process that he would address it and never did. And so that hearing was closed and the fine was levied and the citation was filed on the land records. They went through, then it went through foreclosure, and the bank got control of it, and I believe that's how the bank disclosed it to you guys before you bought it, because they knew that this was a citation that was filed on the land records and you were entitled to know about it. So the commission's goal is to get the issue back in before them at some point when a new buyer comes along. Obviously, it's recognized that a new buyer is usually an opportunity to work work together toward resolving the issue, and it's not anything that's contentious or.
Which is why we're here.
Yeah, and
was the realtor, and I just happen to have a background in environmental science, so I told him that I would support him as far as finding people and just sort of overseeing the project. So if I'm just introducing myself, my name's Pat Hudd, I'm a realtor in the Brookfield area, but my first allegiance is to any, wildlife-related issues. So I encouraged him to buy this property because I thought his wife especially expressed a real interest to do what was right and to do some mitigation there. So, I'm here representing that, he did know that there was a problem, and we're hoping to resolve it so that everybody wins.
Thank you.
okay.
All right, Mr. Lawyer, so
I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
go for it.
The big pipe, the 16 to 18-inch pipe, draw all the way from the backyard.
This one?
Yes. You think you'll have to just get a permit for that, or going to have to be removed?
Well, one of the things, just to kind of advise the commission a little bit is, I'm assuming that since we went through this process in the past and the commission asked for some remediation submission to the commission, I'm assuming that's what we're looking at now.
Mm-hmm.
So really tonight, you could help him in advising what the expectations would be for that submission.
I'm gonna go ahead and speak for the commission because we talked about this last meeting a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. We're gonna need a submission of full remediation of that wetland area.
Sure.
So that is something that a professional is probably gonna have to help you.
Yes,
come
I'm
up
going
with
to
a-
have to hire a soil scientist so he can flag all around. I have someone there, but he was too busy, so he's going to go back and do the zoning, do the, how do you call it?
The flagging, yep.
The flagging, and then
Yeah.
we're going to have to get the survey, the
Right.
new survey of it, and make a plan how we're going to do it and bring it to you
And then
guys.
hire a professional, and I think what, we thought today, we know the steps, just so you know, but a little bit of guidance up front as we hire the people. When you're saying a full mitigation, how much, what is the overall expectation? Do you have a vision where you want this to end up, or we just hire a professional to propose propose something.
Yeah, unfortunately, today's meeting is not about what, today's meeting is what the process, there's different ways that we can handle violations. But there's a significant amount of fill here in actual wetlands. So we're gonna need a full remediation submission, which is an application and, you
I
know.
mean, your professional's gonna find out, determine a lot of the information we wanna know, is how much fill was put there, where was
Yeah, we
the
have
wetlands?
someone already there looking at it.
What
He's
is
gonna
he
come back.
recommending that?
He says he's gonna
be
have
done?
to dig it and see the soil.
Right, so
And
we
he's been
can't
there.
really, we couldn't give
You
you,
could propose whatever you wanna propose, it doesn't mean that we're gonna
Okay.
approve it, you know, you could say, no, my proposal is to put grass there and ignore it.
And leave
We
it
would
alone.
say,
Yeah.
no. So it's a little
No,
bit,
I know.
mean,
but it sounds
ideally-
like.
Have to come out.
It sounds like you're already where we need you to be right now. By having the appropriate professional come in,
Yes.
find out how
I
much
have
of
to
that
just
is
make an
full.
appointment. So he's gonna
where
go
the
there by
wetland
himself
lines
and
are.
dig in and flag it.
Right.
And then I have to call the guy to do the survey. And then I have to call someone, a landscape, to make a plan, how we're gonna be done.
Right.
And bring it over to
And
you
then you also
guys.
want to make sure he addresses the two buildings. So again, those aren't the largest violations on the property, so those can be dealt with.
Yeah, the garage thing that we used to have, the first one right away, I'm thinking about just remove that, remove the stone, remove the wall. That's like, you know,
That should all be part of your submission to,
Yes.
for
So you
but
don't
remediation.
the shed by the house, I'll like to get
You
a permit.
probably
for
should
it.
not do anything until you
That's what I
have a
wanted to
full
clarify.
plan.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
don't
didn't
start
touch it
doing the
anything.
work until
No.
you check out.
Until you have a full application, putting a plan together that
So
we sit there and
the
approve and talk
the
about.
question is, after I have the science scientist come over flag and zoning, I have to have a company to come and apply for the permit, right?
Well, the soil scientist would generally assist you in doing that.
Yes, he's definitely gonna help me with that.
So once they find out where the wetlands are, how much fill is there, they should be able to tell us that information and what you're gonna do to fix the problem that's there.
Yeah, let's back up just a little bit too, in that the soil scientist, if a soil scientist goes out there and just, if you ask them the question, where are there wetlands? And they flag the wetlands, the commission is gonna be looking for more than that. They're gonna be looking for the soil scientist to be able to explain what was there, how much of it has been filled. In other words, not just where the wetlands are today, but, and in order to do that, they may have to do some test pits or deeper digging.
Yeah, he's gonna do that.
Yeah, I think that he had said that before, right?
Yeah, he says he's gonna have
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, I
dig.
get it.
What is his knowledge about it? He says about like 20 to 18 inches they did up under the.
Did you
between
hire
the
somebody
wall- the
already?
wall. Yes.
Did he give you any indication about how long it was gonna take for him to come up with a report?
No.
Because that's the next thing we talk about tonight, is how
Yes,
long
you
it
guys
was-
gonna
That
give the
was what-
time
yeah.
to do
When
it, or it has to
we
be done
expect you
right
to have-
away?
Well, we want it done fairly expeditiously, at least the submission to come in fairly expeditiously.
Yes.
And then, once the submission's here, there's gonna be some work involved, and then there'll be another deadline about, can't do any work until it's approved, clearly.
Yes,
Understand?
definitely.
So you're gonna come in here with that plan, we're gonna talk about it for the environment and for you, and then we'll give you another deadline on when that work has to be done by.
Yes, I know we have to take the fill out and the stone out, that's why we're being talking on the property. And the stone wall, probably you guys wouldn't have to, that would be removed. I
Right,
don't
so
know.
what's a reasonable time frame to give him to come back with that submission after he's already has engaged,
We've lined up some
Partially.
professionals, yeah.
partially engaged some professionals here, so 45 days? Does that sound okay to everybody? Is that reasonable, Scott?
Well, let's ask them, how long you guys envision?
Oh, well, I don't know when he's gonna be able to do the job, to do the flag, and then I have to hire someone else to do the.
You gotta have
the
someone
zoning.
do a plan. the
Yes,
actual
it's
plan.
gonna take a little bit, like a month, so,
Yeah, I would
Can we have
say, I would
60
say
days?
60 days.
yeah, it's gonna take a little while.
So this is the second meeting in April,
Yeah.
can we do this by the second meeting in June, which takes us all the way to the 22nd?
Which is basically have a
26th?
plan.
Yeah, then at that
Have
time,
the
I will have a
submission.
plan for it,
Read
so I can
it.
bring something to you guys, so you guys see if you like it,
Hey,
and
Scott,
then go from
I got a
there.
question though. The piping though, that has to get removed out of the wetlands, the drains that they put in there?
Well, I
The
mean,
little
that's,
ones or
the
I'm
big
assuming, yeah, if they're gonna restore the
The
wetlands.
Because that's the two major things, that the two drains that are in the upper corner are sucking all the water out of the wetlands right now.
Right. So just, usually, these are just rules of thumb. Usually, everything that's happened in the wetland, anything, any fill, any pipes, those typically are, there's not much question about it, remove it. So anything that went into the wetland needs to be removed and the wetlands need to be restored. The buffer area, let's call it a buffer, the upland review area, this here, and well, there's nothing here other than that shed. But this area here, typically, if there's fill in an upland review area, it's not the end of the world. It's more like they look to have it restored, whatever buffer was there to be restored. Certainly if there's pipes that are changing the character of the land, maybe, if you're removing the pipe here and the pipe continues over to here, I would say remove the whole thing kind of thing. So this area, you're probably looking at more restoration in terms of buffer. The last item is this, well, not the last, this shed, I would think, speaking for the commission, it's toward the front yard, pretty far away from, I would think that you're talking about getting a permit for. And then the last item is the piping of this channel here. I think your professional needs to provide them with a little bit more information about what was there to begin with. Was it purely a channel that conveyed water, or was it a channel that had other resources like respective soils and plants and things like that? Was it well defined, or was it more broad with a wetlands environment around it? Once they know, then they can make a determination as to whether or not you can just leave the pipe there and restore the rest of it, or whether or not that has to come out.
Okay, we're gonna come up with a plan and bring it to you guys, and if you guys approve, we move from there.
Okay, and you understand that we're looking for that by our second meeting in June, which is the 26th of June.
Right.
And the submission is what, a week
So
before?
the submission date would be June 19th.
June 19th.
So it has to be
Would
to
be
the office by
submitted to
June
the land
19th.
use
And we
Bring it
will,
to here to
You
go to the
have to
office.
see it, you have time to see it.
it goes to the office by June 19th, and then we will,
But at this point, you can stop in, if you have questions
Yeah.
or need help, I can give you the forms and we can discuss.
Yeah, that'd be very nice.
And also,
I would also
I'm
caution you, because it sounds like you've got a soil scientist, but you really need you're gonna need a soil scientist, you're gonna need probably a landscape architect, you're gonna need a surveyor. So you need someone who can handle almost the whole project. Because if you try to do it yourself, and you hire a soil scientist here, and you ask him to go fly to wetlands, do a report, and then you try to find a surveyor to go out and survey.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for
it,
like a little team, they already work together.
Exactly.
So it'll be easier, I know.
Exactly.
I already
That's
have
where
someone in
I'll
there,
come in is-
I already have someone in there.
is it
and
someone from this area?
I don't know where he is from.
Yeah.
He was on the,
I don't have the name right up, yeah, I'm the one pulling. I got a reference from the Twombly Nursery, who, I asked for who they knew in the wetlands, and that's the person that I.
you guys can recommend anyone in the area?
Unfortunately, cannot. I was just, if you knew the name, I could tell you if they knew.
No. He comes here all the time, we know.
There's a few that we see a lot, who will know what you need.
They carry
Yeah.
all of
They do
the
everything,
material
yeah.
for the replanting, for the
Okay.
species, so I figured they would know good. So I have two separate teams that we've interviewed, and I'm kind of steering towards the one that the Twombly.
Sounds like you're on the right track.
recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to.
If
put-
they have any questions along the way, certainly you can call me as well.
So I'm not gonna
I'll
do nothing
help
until I
out.
have the permit, I need the shed, the
Yeah,
stone,
yeah,
I'm not touching anything.
nothing until we get through this all in one
Yes, she
big
already
shot.
told me
Yeah.
that
All right.
for to begin with.
Does he have to like take test holes to see how deep the fill is and all that?
Yeah,
before
he
can
he already
plan
expects to
together?
do
Yeah,
that.
but we're not talking huge amounts. It could be hand done, I believe.
So he's got to do that before he.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the soil
Yeah.
survey, yeah.
He
Yeah,
has to find out
just-
how much he
just so
filled.
the people, we'll assemble the team and they'll work with you.
Yeah,
Sounds
exactly.
good.
Once
That's the way to
once
do
you've
it.
hired your team, I'd have them call Scott,
Yeah.
have them talk to Scott, and Scott will fill them in.
Can I have your number?
and they're not the wetlands.
I'll take, don't worry about it, I'll take
Yeah,
care
it's,
of it
it's
for
the
you.
office number.
Okay, the office, okay.
Give me your home
Yeah,
number.
that's where I'm kind of like. I'm
Give me
here
your
to just
cell phone,
coordinate
Scott. I
for you,
wanna
just
write this
because
down.
I can-
Mr. Gloria, thanks for being responsive, and like I said, just, sounds like you're on the right track, and we'll get this all taken care of.
So when I have to come back in here to bring the,
We have to do the
plan stuff?
submission on the 19th, and we're back,
Before the 19th, so if you have it earlier, by
No,
all
the
means.
19th is when you submit the package.
packet, so they can
Right.
review it.
So the first
And you
thing you
can
want
put
to
us
do
on the
is contact
schedule.
us
19 what
tomorrow,
month?
and I can give you the remediation form. And that gives you a guideline of the information that we're looking for.
Sure.
June, this is all June, not next month, June.
So you fill out the form, you get the required information, and you submit that information on June 19th, and then you'll be back on the agenda for June 26th.
Same time here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And I'll make sure,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Pleasure to meet you all.
You too, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our deliberation session, but you recuse yourself on Glen Hollow?
I do.
So we're gonna, unfortunately though, we are supposed to be deliberating on our Glen Hollow Drive.
The Jim can't vote on that.
Jim recuses, and that means we don't have enough voting members.
So I
That
will
is correct.
recuse myself and I'll stay here and we'll just pass it.
So are we gonna, do we table it to our next,
We have to.
That's what,
but do we need a,
is there enough time?
Yeah, because we just started the 35-day.
You didn't have to come anyway. That's the only way we had to deliberate on it.
Yeah, we're good. We're still
We're okay?
within it.
Now.
Yeah.
all right, so IUC 2019-0211 Glen Hollow Drive will be tabled to our next meeting because we don't have enough voting members to vote on that deliberation. We all, you two, you've gotten that letter, correct?
Oh, yeah, everything was perfect, it
All
was
right,
fine.
all right, just want to make sure you
Scott
got
did a
it.
good job on that.
I know that the town has been experiencing some
You read
email
it, right?
issues.
I read it.
Well, I got
When
it
she
out
emailed-
before I went
Before
on
it
vacation.
Emails me.
No, I remember getting it.
I read it before I come into the meetings.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy letter to write.
All right, so bond release reduction reports,
So that you got a letter,
Oh, in front of us, yeah.
yes. Take time to read the letter.
No, wait a minute, not the extension, you're talking about the bond release report, okay.
For 585 Main Street.
Okay.
I-1103, 585 Main Street, Monroe Muffler LLC, requesting remaining bond
Oh,
release of $5,000.
Yeah, that's the remaining bond, the work was all done, and actually it was done a while ago. and
Right.
It just didn't get processed.
Everything looks okay. I'll entertain a motion,
I make a motion that we release the bond.
the remainder of the
Remaining
$5,000 bond. So I have a motion by Clark. Do I hear a second? Second by Ross. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Bond is ordered released unanimously. Thank you.
No, Scott said he had another one.
Well, 34 Enterprise Drive is next, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last meeting, you guys asked me to report on it this meeting. You said, come back, tell us next meeting.
Well, I don't remember discussing this one at the last meeting. Did we discuss it?
This was Mr. Kimball?
I'm kidding.
Okay, so I'm doing that, and I'm not sure if you guys are gonna be in a position to wanna make a decision on it or not, given the fact that some of the commissioners are missing, but at any rate, what I did was I went out there and surveyed it to get a better level of comfort for myself as far as what was going on with the elevations, because when you're standing there looking at it, it's very hard to figure out if it's a high spot in front of the outlet control structure or what. So anyway, I surveyed it, and to make a long story short, the as-built is correct. I got a slightly different number here and there, but it's within a cushion of comfort. So I feel that the as-built information is correct. The the work that he did on the spillway that he told you about that night was literally done between the time I looked at it that day and that meeting that night. And it is in fact within a level of accuracy that's acceptable, so it matches the approved plan. So that's done. So at the time when I did the survey, it was on the 23rd, we took a bunch of photos, and I'm going to show them to you. And we also put a stake in the middle of the pond. And there, I say pond because there's 0.9 inches of, or 0.9 feet of water in the basin after it rained. Now, it rained that previous day.
Is it 0.9 feet?
Point,
Or 0.9 of a
Point-
foot? Or is it
0.9
9
of a-
inches?
0.9 of a foot.
Put
0.9.
9
And it was
inches.
supposed to be what, 0.8, right?
Yeah, somewhere
Oh,
around
so it's-
that, yeah.
Okay,
So it's the depth between the bottom of the V notch and the
And the-
6x8
Okay.
orifice and the bottom of the basin. And that was filled with water. And it stopped raining at midnight, and we were out there at 11 in the morning. So we, roughly 12 hours. And so we put a stake in the pond. We went out with boots, put a stake in the middle of the pond, and we put lines for every 10th.
wow.
So we can stand on the side and watch the water go down. So we went out
Real
there,
engineering study here.
yeah, we went out there today, or Conrad went out today, and at noon today, it had lowered 1/10. So it went down 1/10 in 24 hours. At 5 today, it did not go down any further. It was still at 1/10. When we did the survey, there were geese swimming in the pond. There were other things in the pond as well, frogs croaking and whatever. And so we did our elevations. So what we're seeing is, or what I should say is, I went back to the file and I pulled out the approved drainage calculations. And the drainage calculations, and I'll quote what it says here: stormwater management modification. Third paragraph down on the second page of the engineering report, executive summary, I should say. The third paragraph down says, the new design proposes to modify the existing detention basin to accommodate the required volume needed to attenuate the rate of runoff for all storm events. Instead of excavating the basin bottom, which as previously approved, to an elevation of 406.5, in parentheses, approximate level of high groundwater table, close parentheses, to get a wet bottom basin condition, the new design will maintain the current basin's bottom of 408, providing adequate distance from the water table and allowing the basin to infiltrate. Period. Next sentence. Allowing the storm water to infiltrate within a 24-hour rainfall duration will make the basin a dry bottom basin, reducing the potential for a decoy vernal pool. So the approved drainage calculations say that the basin is designed to drain out in 24 hours. 24.
Okay, so-
Back up for a second.
Yeah.
So they dug the pond, or they kept it the same
So-
elevation it was originally?
They kept it the same elevation as original. However, the original design,
Yeah.
when it was originally built, the invert of the basin
Was lower?
was at the bottom of the basin, yes.
Okay.
It was at the bottom of the basin. I have the as-built right here, the final as-built of the subdivision. Thought I had it here, hold on. original subdivision as-built of Cambridge Drive. And what that is it shows the road that they built, and it shows the detention basin they built, and the bottom of the basin is 409, which is a foot higher, and the invert of the V-notch is 408.6. Okay, so that means that the V-notch was at the bottom of the basin, so therefore, when it was done with its attenuation, there's no storage below the V-notch. The water ran out of the basin. It was a dry basin. They came along and initially got it approved to create a wet basin, as you may recall, with the guard that went around it. They determined that the guard was too expensive. They couldn't get it. They came back. They modified their plan. And they said, well, we'll keep the same bottom of the basin, but they raised the V-notch. So they created this area, this volume below the V-notch here. And they did that because they wanted to provide stormwater quality. And that's an acceptable form of stormwater quality because the volume below the outlet, the invert in the outlet control structure, as long as that water filters into the ground, it qualifies for stormwater quality means. However, they then proposed a mechanical unit for their stormwater quality, so they don't need that volume anymore.
Okay,
For water quality volume, they need it for attenuation.
okay.
So they gave me the revised calculations, or the approved, they gave the commission the drainage calculations for this new design, which they want it to be a dry basin, but it's based on the bottom 0.9 feet percolating into the ground within 24 hours.
Which won't do it, because
And now,
especially the wet
it
conditions will be
rained,
bad.
we've monitored it for a day and a half now,
Yeah.
and it only dropped 1/10 instead of 10/10.
Yeah.
So 9/10 of a foot, which is what, 11 inches? 11 inches is sitting in the basin, and it's there today. So at that rate, it would take 10 to 12 days to dry out if it follows that same linear progression, which I don't think it will, because as it drains lower, it loses head, doesn't have the pressure of pushing it down into the ground.
And it's gonna rain again.
And it's probably gonna rain again. So what I'm reporting to you is that it isn't draining out in 24 hours like their approval says.
Okay, and they
Now,
need
one other thing I think
Yeah,
you're
but
gonna
what you know
find,
really sucks for-
I gotta show you this because we were blown away by this next thing. So I gotta show you this. We took pictures today, or,
Four ten up at the top.
no,
Right down one more, down, keep going down.
Oh, sorry.
Right there, 423, that's 423,
okay.
that's
So-
yesterday. Well,
Oh, this is yesterday's?
they were added to that thing today, but the folder said 423, that one is 424.
Okay. These are the pictures, well, I should show you both, but first I'm gonna show you the pictures from today. And this is just Conrad. The pond has algae growing in it.
Oh, geez.
Algae only grows in water, right?
Yeah.
So, there's the stake out in the middle. So let me just see if this,
That's why the frogs are going in there.
how do I get out, how do I?
Any salamanders?
Just hit the arrow, you're hitting the arrow, right?
Oh,
You wanna
down
go to the
here.
next one? There you go.
So that's
There's
how
the
we did
stick.
it. So you can see the 1/10 here, that it went down, because that's where the water was the day before.
That's a cute one.
And so there's a high spot between the basin and over here is the outlet. So that's why it was confusing before, because the water was lower than this high spot, and this was bone dry. So here's it's just at the bottom now. So Conrad wanted today to see, it looks like it's not running because it's at the bottom of the orifices. So he went over to the outlet, the flared end outlet, and he said, while I'm walking down to the flared end outlet, there was this like movement in the end of the flared end, and I'm like, what is that? So he he went down in here and he found, you see what you're looking at right there? It's in silhouette. It's a fish. It's a 4-inch long fish in the outlet. And he's like, what? And the fish was flapping around. And there's like minimal water here. And so he grabbed the fish and he threw it into the pond because he said, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to save it, you know, so he throws it into the pond.
Oh, shit.
And so his question was, where did the fish come from?
Some little kid, it wasn't like a
there's no-
pet fish.
So the river is 60 feet away and lower.
What kind of fish was it?
That's what I asked him. He didn't. I said, why didn't you take a picture? He said, because I had it in my hand. It's flapping around.
He's got to wear a GoPro from now on.
So if you look at this, this is the outlet. I said, there's only either someone put it there, which
So what
is
did Darwin say
there's
about
no
this?
kids, there's no one around. There's no, or a bird dropped it. There was no marks on the fish. He said it was
It
fine.
was still alive.
Or it came out of the pond because this was wet.
It's opening a fishing day.
A couple
fishing
hours
week,
ago, this
right?
was wet, so the fish,
Didn't fishing
when the
season
water
just
was
start?
running, the fish probably came out of the pond. If you see here,
Big fish.
his head is jammed into the
Yeah.
rocks here, so he must have come swimming out of here, hit the rocks, and he can't go anywhere.
And he's brain injured now.
So it's just,
crazy.
the only thing, we're trying to figure out, how can a fish be in there?
Oh, we can't change it now. I had an idea, but now the fish are in it. And we gotta keep it that way.
So,
Well, the other thing to note while we're going through these pictures is the one thing that when we agreed to this change was that we didn't want it to become a decoy vernal pool. He's out there today and there's birds, frogs, tadpoles, which is what?
Algae,
Algae,
see
which
the water
sounds a lot
going.
like
which
a
means
decoy
it
vernal
means
pool.
it's becoming a pond.
All right, so he's got to.
And so neither one of us has ever seen it dry. We've seen it, it definitely
Okay,
goes down.
Can he dig out a little bit more of this area here and put an opening at the bottom?
The problem
Without
with that,
changing
it
without
changes-
changes the, well, he's gonna have to figure out a way to
he
make it.
has to redo all this again because
Well-
it changes all this. So,
Or come
Well,
up-
first of all, do we want to act on his request for a bond release
No.
without our full commission here?
No.
No.
So,
okay.
do we
so-
not want to act on that?
But
till
you know,
next meeting?
but you know what, it sucks though, that engineering company set the whole thing up, he did the work, that's the whole thing, is he did the work, what they told him to do the work based on that. And
So,
he's
again,
stuck
this is
holding the
not-
bond, he's stuck holding the bond, and it's
Well-
those the engineers that set it
But
up
that's
there.
not, I don't see that as our issue.
The
No,
reason why
but
we
I
have
know,
a
but
bond is
he's
to make sure
stuck-
that
he's
thing
stuck
performs the
because-
way it should.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, and given the information
They
that we've
gave
been
him, they
given,
gave him a bad plan, they basically gave him a
Is-
bad plan, it's not working.
I mean,
I mean, it could be too much clay in the soil on the bottom of the.
I mean, we have had a
Yeah,
lot of,
when he walked out into the pond,
it's
I
high
mean,
ground.
it's not gonna drain anyway.
It's like
Just-
very high groundwater these days, though, so.
yeah, no, we've had
That
such
could
a
be
wet,
something.
wet,
all right, I'm gonna go to the
I
other.
imagine when they went and designed this, they went out there several times and
Yeah.
it wasn't
in the
sloppy
middle of the summer
wet.
when it was completely dry
Okay,
out.
so here's the
And now
day,
we've had the wettest fall and winter.
here's yesterday when we went out there,
Yeah.
and you can see, matter of fact, you can see
there's a lot of water in there.
there's the birds.
There's the geese, yeah.
They're pretty much in almost every picture if you zoom in.
Well, I would put
But
it back on.
one of these, he got a picture, you could see the sediment. When he walked across the pond, he said there's about an inch of like clay type.
Silt, yeah.
Is he wearing full waders
Soft
there?
material, huh?
He wearing full waders there?
No, he had boots on that were like 14 inches high. Typical.
So the water's over a foot deep then.
No,
It went almost, it's almost a foot, just about a foot. It
Oh.
went right up toward the top of the boot.
And if you remember at our last meeting, we had a picture from the morning. He was showing us a picture that he said was from 5 o'clock that night, and the water was gone.
You can see his footprints there.
But that's groundwater, right? I mean, we all agree, it's just high groundwater.
Well, I don't know that, and we don't know that. It could be high groundwater, or it could be the basin bottom is contaminated to the point with a silty material that it is not draining quickly.
24 hours for 1 inch of drop, though? I mean,
Yeah.
That's really,
And so,
that's really tight.
yeah, and so that's why I'm reporting it to you, because it's not, I mean, it's not like it's just a little off. It would take 10 or 12 days.
I guess I would put it back on them and say, hey, look, you got a lot of choices here. Your engineer's gotta figure out whether he's gotta scrape the bottom of the pond, put in some drains in the pond, drill out, redo the calculations to dry it out, raise the size of the pond and put a fence around it to stop, I mean, he's got a huge number of choices of what he could do to solve the problem.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call him and discuss it and tell him that I talked to the commission. They didn't do any voting or anything because the full commission wasn't here. And that, the thought is they're looking for some suggestions on how this wants to be rectified, how they want to rectify this.
Yeah,
But,
upon further examination, the basin.
It's been raining again tonight.
It's clearly not
It's supposed to rain
performing
tonight
like,
and tomorrow.
like it was supposed to,
yeah,
as designed.
and I'm hoping it doesn't rain tonight because that'll give us another full day or two of.
Yeah, see how it goes, yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you.
I feel bad for him, man. He did that work.
What's the height of the water in the wetlands that's closest to this?
I didn't shoot that. It would have been a good idea to do that. But in the wetland that's to the north of it, there's a wetland over here, I don't know if you remember, between this and where the buses are parked.
Uh-huh.
There's a wetland there, and I saw standing water, and I'm almost positive higher than this. So if there's water sitting in there,
Yeah.
there's water here, and then there's water in the wetland that's below it. I think you got, the groundwater is cutting across there. Now, when they designed it, they reported and testified that they found redoxamorphic features in the test pit at an elevation that was almost 2 feet below, well, at 406.5, I think they said, and the bottom of the basin's 408. So, but that's just what's reported to us. I mean, that's, when someone digs a test pit, they're looking at the conditions, it's a visual thing. You're looking for mottling and, presence of water, fluctuating water table. They can be off a little bit, and that's why when you design these things, you want to be a minimum of 18 inches above what you think is the high groundwater. But if they were off with this, then that's the problem, because
I mean, I don't think they should be, I wouldn't force them to raise the pond because they didn't change it, right? I mean.
But they did, because the original pond
Oh,
was
the
at
orifice.
408, and the V-notch,
I
so the
would-
water ran, whatever
Yes.
water came in the
No,
pond.
but I'm saying I would be
ran up.
okay with I believe the orifice should be changed, but I wouldn't say,
Right.
okay, by the way,
I-
now you're raising the whole pond up, raising the orifice, getting it out of the
Right,
groundwater,
right.
because I think that they worked with what they had.
And that was
Now, if they
originally.
had
a
dug
problem.
it down to create this, then I think, well, it's all on them.
So I really think the solution here is most likely for them to rebuild the side of the outlet structure, lower the V-notch and the
Recalculate.
6x8 orifice, and then provide new calculations to show that it'll have
Sure.
the same routing as the original, the same results of the
Yep.
routing as the original. I think that's probably the best way to do it. There's a cost to doing that. The cost of doing the engineering is probably more than the cost of doing the retrofit on the outlet structure. But I don't know what to tell you.
I mean,
other
Craig's
than-
got the model all set up, I mean, it
You're
shouldn't
right,
be,
the
it shouldn't
model-
be that much.
the
Change the
model is set
orifice a
up.
little bit and hit the button.
Matter of fact, I started to do it myself because I was going to rerun it. But if you don't have the data input all set up,
Yeah,
it takes
a long time.
You'd have to redo the whole thing. I'm not going to do that. I'll call them and see what happens.
Excellent, thank you.
Donna, this is fun engineering stuff.
On
You
to
find
time,
this interesting, huh?
on to time extensions, IWC 2018-05R for Maple O'Keefe, request for time extension.
Okay, this one I should explain because
Well, I mean, it says in the
Where
letter,
is
we
that
can
one?
kind of understand it, that
That's right.
planning and zoning didn't pass anything for him until December.
I didn't, do we have the letter?
Yeah, she gave us a letter.
All right, so, do we, I hope.
They're asking
do
for
we
a
have the
30-day
approval letter?
extension. Do we need to?
Yeah, let's give it to him.
We're
I mean-
fine, we're fine with giving the extension, it just sounds like
No,
30
I
days.
don't.
Okay, unfortunately,
I don't,
I wasn't thinking about this earlier today, and I didn't realize, but, there's a problem with this, because what happened was, the approval required that there were certain conditions of the approval that had to be addressed within the 270 days. So, we started the review of approval process. They went through that, they made some changes. I sent out an email and said, okay, you need to do 3 or 4 more things. And by the way, you only have a couple days left. You need to submit a request for an extension of time. They did not do that.
Oh.
They didn't ask for the extension of time, and the time ran out. That was like over 6 months ago. All right? So their time to address the conditions of the approval lapsed. In addition to that, the approval had a deadline to complete the remediation work. Because your attitude was, we want the remediation completed in a timely fashion, and the second phase of what they were proposing, the driveway and the detention basin with it, you didn't really care as much about. You wanted to make sure that they did the remediation work. His letter that he submitted to you is saying that they couldn't get it done in time because they needed to go to P&Z. Well, they didn't do anything about P&Z until recently, when we said to them, look, what's the deal with P&Z? You never applied. So the reason that they didn't get it done is because they never went to P&Z all this time, and they're trying to tell you in this letter here
The P and Z drop.
Oh, and they're
That-
blaming it on things.
that it's, and let me read the
Why
letter.
can't we find somebody,
What's the
because this is like, sounds like
Yeah,
they're
what
playing.
are our
they're playing-
choices
they're
to
playing
either
with
give them the 30
What are
days?
you recommending?
Well,
It's not a
what
problem,
I'm
it's up to
recommending is that I told him in a subsequent email, I said, your approval has lapsed. They can't give you an extension, it's lapsed. You didn't meet the deadline, and you didn't ask for an extension. So what you need to do is resubmit the application, same information, pay the same fee, and then you guys, I'm assuming, will just reinstate the application unless you have an issue with that being a violation. You may say, no, just issue a citation, I don't know. But I said, I'm assuming you'll probably reissue.
Did we have public hearings for any of this? No.
He went
Yeah.
through a public hearing
Yeah, I remember
for,
this.
because it was an application and a remediation, because he proposed to build a driveway.
Well, I'd hate to see us go through another 3-month process.
Well, what I explained to him was, he just submits the application, it comes to the meeting that night, you just say, yeah, approve, it's the same exact thing, it's approved, all the same conditions, all the same everything, you don't,
And then we give them 60 days or something.
exactly.
Okay, I'm all over that. Let's do it.
And the only other alternative,
Because that is a penalty, there's how much, he has to pay
But
the.
what Scott is saying, you guys don't need to listen, what Scott is saying is, there's no other option. We
Right.
cannot give them an extension
No.
because there's no more approval, because
Right.
it lapsed.
That's it.
yeah, and the only other option is to do nothing, and don't give him the extension, and he doesn't submit again, and then he gets a violation. That's-
No.
Well, he already has a violation.
Not a violation, a
A citation.
citation.
Yeah, well, let's
Let him
just,
do the application.
yeah, let's
Yeah,
do the
that-
application.
that's
We already
what-
did all this work, and then if he doesn't follow through with that, then we'll do
Yes,
citation.
okay, so we'll get a letter.
Okay, at least we're collecting something from it, whatever the fee is for,
The collection is,
for the application. Well, I mean, it is a
that only
penalty.
covers the,
I mean, they should be penalized for something, you know?
well, it's not about, well, okay.
It's
We don't
not
know
about.
It's not about
being
penalizing,
punitive, It's
it's-
about getting them to.
Do the work.
Get dragged, they drag their
feet for 6 months.
Well, we don't know who dragged their feet. The engineer
right.
might have not done it.
So
because he wasn't
in
getting paid. He might
IWC
have not-
agent activities report,
You never know.
Scott,
Wait, let's back up a minute. There's 4 of you, There is a request for an extension, why don't you vote on that?
Well, again, then,
You would deny it if you
Do-
said what you just said, you would be denying the
well,
extension.
well, we can't accept or deny an
Well, no,
extension
he's-
because there's one that can't exist because there's no approval.
Well, I'm just saying, for the record, he's requested an extension.
For
You're either
denying his
gonna approve it or
request.
deny, you're gonna deny it on the grounds
Okay,
that.
motion
his
to
approval
deny the
lies.
request for extension, based on the fact that he has got no active permit.
I have a motion by Commissioner Stewart. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, and just by no active permit, you mean that the.
Approval has lapsed.
The
Lapsed.
conditions of approval.
There you go, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I mean. Thank you for clarifying what I mean.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're now down to agent approvals. We approved a IAA 2019-09 for 293 Hattertown Road, 20-gallon propane tanks, and IAA 2019-10 for 40 Oakwood Drive, and that was for a 12-by-16 shed. IAA 2019-21 Barton, we have a request for a permit. And I thought she put it on the drive, but I don't see it there. This was a new house that was approved a couple of years ago. And it involved, it's at the end of Bartigo, it was at the cul-de-sac, and along the side yard was a waterway with wetlands. And you guys approved the house, approved the yard. You required a buffer planting and markers along there, and they did everything. And the people, I think these are new people, bought the house, and they have dogs, and they want to fence in the backyard. Now, normally, I would just do an agent approval because it's in a previously disturbed and regulated area. But being a fence along a wetland and a buffer planting, I just wanted to kind of get your blessing on it, because I know that in the past, you've had situations where you've wanted, like, you didn't want a fence, or you wanted the fence raised so that things could get underneath it, back.
Like dogs.
Like turtles and things, frogs and things like that. However, on the other hand, if they're fencing in their backyard and they're gonna have dogs, I don't think a turtle's gonna survive in a
No.
backyard with dogs and things.
Or the frogs.
Also,
or
it's
the
a
But,
snapper.
but for the record, I just wanted you guys to weigh in before I went ahead and did an agent approval. So tell me what you think.
I think you ought to let him have a fence.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay?
Better
So-
than the dogs.
So I'll do an agent approval, thank you very much, and that's really all I was looking for.
Thank you.
Because those dogs could really disturb the
All
water.
right, next item is permitted uses as of right. We had an emergency septic repair at 131 Hattertown Road that we signed off on. That's through the health department in a previously disturbed area, so we signed off on that. And then we moved to the rest of the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
I don't see anything else.
Yeah, the minutes we'll have to table.
We're tabling the
because-
minutes.
Yes, please.
And the Regulation Amendment Committee and the Public Outreach Committee are not here, so
Motion to adjourn.
any correspondence?
Nope.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Stewart. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Masterocco. All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Any opposed? Any abstention?
So if I get the second-
Meeting is adjourned.